Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stepping Up to the Plate. So glad you could join us. I'm your host, Michael Vega, for another half hour of scintillating sports talk. And it's Super Bowl weekend here in Milton, and a lot to discuss. But first, a quick shout out to the Milton High football team, who had a great time at the Terrell Room in Quincy this past weekend, honoring the 11-1 Wildcats that made it all the way to the Division III Super Bowl, and it was a great time to have reflection and recollection, and to celebrate this team, and specifically this group of seniors. I mean, they're so accomplished and a great group of kids, and my hat's off to all their parents, who I've become very friendly with through the years, because in a sense, these kids have become my sons as well, having watched them compete on the same courts and fields as my own son Noel. So to watch these kids grow up and mature and become, just celebrated athletes here in town is fabulous. And, the motto of the team has always been leave a mark. And I think what this team did specifically, and, they achieved that goal in many respects. They left their mark. They lit a path. They blazed a trail for the kids who are in the program now. And as I said to them, the question remains for you guys, who's got next? Who's going to be the next one up in line? And let me tell you, there are some fabulous looking players in this program still for Coach Steve Dembowski and his staff. They've done a wonderful job bringing this program along. Now they've raised the bar, they've raised the expectations, and this group has shown what can happen. What can happen if you put in the hard work? What can happen if you come together as a team? What can happen if, as you rally a community behind you, as this team has done? And like I said, their greatest gift was they connected all of us. They connected everything. And they took us on a great journey. And to celebrate that, we are endeavoring here at Milton Access to provide a documentary. Been hard at work here behind the scenes, documenting that week, that season. And the working title is A Season to Savor. So we're hoping to get that, it's in the pipeline right now. We're hoping to finalize it and get it done, and we'll be airing it here on Milton Access TV. And so a lot of good things to come. I also wanted to send a shout out to the Milton girls hockey team, ranked number 17 in the recent Globe Top 20 poll. They're 12-1-3, and they're playoff bound, having had a spectacular turnaround from their 6-12-2 season of a year ago. Coach Matt Lodi, the fourth-year coach, extremely proud of all his players, as we all should be, and in particular, junior goaltender Lila Shamoon, who's going to take this team far. She's a stalwart in net, having recorded 8 shutouts this year for the Wildcats. And as her coach has said, she wants to stop every puck she sees. So, she'll take this team far, and it'll be interesting to see how far they do go. So congratulations to them. We'll be keeping an eye out on the playoffs as they get ready for it. And as I mentioned, it's Super Bowl week. Al, unbelievable. Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot going on there, a lot going on in the NFL. Now teams are filling out their rosters. Brian Flores landing as the defensive coordinator with the Vikings. Sean Payton being hired by the Broncos. D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator, going to the Texans. I think the Texans, you better keep an eye out on them. They're going to be pretty good because they have a lot of draft picks. They have the right guy in place, I think, and what they need to do is just establish a culture, and he does that, So a lot of interesting things going on there with the the world of the NFL. But more interesting than that was it seemed like this consensus that was reached between Tom Brady, who retired, and I'll recognize that now that it's for real. As he said, this is the real deal now.
His dad said he doesn't. He talked to him. He said, I don't want to get hit anymore.
Yeah,
So which would be an indication that the offensive line wasn't that good.
Oh boy,
But,
yeah. You know, and the thing is that he's not as mobile as he once was. So he's vulnerable back there. But the consensus that was reached between him and Bill Belichick on this recent podcast, you know, it's like they came to an agreement that, you know what, we were better together than we were apart.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever as strange, the relationship, as it was made out to be. I think there was obviously some issues, but I don't think it was as bad as we all thought it was through the press. Okay, so, and I do believe that Belichick respected Brady's abilities, and I clearly believe Brady respected Belichick.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, though, was, you know, he was looking for a contract there, and so you've got to say it wasn't just Belichick; it had to be Kraft as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So
absolutely.
all that aside, I think it was good. I watched Castiglione on Channel 5 talking to Johnson. Ted, I think it was Ted.
Oh
Johnson,
yeah.
which is kind of interesting. He said a lot of players would lose a lot of respect for Brady if he comes back for one day, sign the contract, unless it's monetary. And I thought that was interesting. He didn't think Brady would do it. Now, I also saw Kraft go on TV and almost imply that he's going to do it, and then he said, "But I can't put words in Brady's mouth that he'll accept it."
Well, you know what? I would do it in conjunction with the announcement that they're going to retire his jersey and that he's going to be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame.
I know, but for him to come back with I think an organization that said that they didn't want him, that's the way it's come down.
Right.
I think what Johnson was saying was he don't believe that players would have the same respect for Brady that they have
If he came back and signed to retire Patriot?
No. If he comes back and retires a Patriot, then he'd lose respect. Now, it's interesting. I heard him on the radio on that show, and then I saw him with Castiglione on TV.
Do you believe that?
I don't know how players feel. I think
Right.
most players feel that Brady was the glue that made that team what it is.
Yeah, no doubt.
But, I mean, if you were to ask them, was it a 50-50 between Brady and Belichick, I think most people would say probably a 65,
60-40.
maybe, or a 70-30.
Belichick would tell you it
like
was
that.
80-20.
Well, maybe.
Belichick would, and not in his favor.
But you
And
know
I think
what?
that's the thing that came off during this podcast. Was
I think
Belichick
I think
was
the
like
question-
complimentary of all the players.
I think the question is moved. Take a look at Kansas City, Mahomes and Reed. Reed is going to go down as a Hall of Fame coach,
Right.
if you will. And Mahomes is going to be considered one of the, 5, 6, 7 best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
But it's much more difficult to manage or coach a Mahomes than it is to coach a Brady. Don't forget, Brady was a drop-back passer.
Yeah.
You give him an offensive line, he dropped back. He wasn't a long guy.
Right.
He had tight ends. He's always had guys coming out of the backfield.
And this is what Belichick said is that, Brady's greatest strength really was his ability to make everyone else around him better.
Better. And I think
And time and again we saw that.
I think what Mahomes does, a coach would sometimes scratch his head because that's not stuff that you
Scripted.
right. You
Yeah,
can't.
he goes off script more than
You
Brady
can't.
ever did.
And what makes Mahomes one of the best is he's the best at doing what he does. Right. He's not a drop-back passer. He can throw the ball, though, and he throws it like a rifle.
I think here's the difference, and you bring up an interesting point, Al. Mahomes is a magician in that he can go off script and pull a rabbit out of a hat.
He can create.
And he can create. Brady's ability is to see the play before it happens, to put his players in position to make that play and to execute it, and to not have to run around
He's a
like
structured-
with
he's
your
a
hair on
structured
fire,
quarterback.
you know, trying to make
Brady's a
something out of
structured
nothing.
quarterback. In other words, when he calls a play, or whoever calls the play in,
Yeah.
he's already told these guys, this is the play. If for what reason it doesn't work, I need you to do this.
Right.
They know that's structure for him. So when he looks this way, and he won't look at the receiver, he'll look this way, but he knows the guy he wants is over here.
Well, that's the thing. It puts everyone on alert that the
Right.
ball is could come to you even if it's not looking at you.
So-
whereas Brady knows that, all right, I'm going to check down my primary and then
Right.
go to my check downs.
Right.
And those guys who know their check
They
downs,
know that, and they
Right.
practice that. Now with Mahomes, and the reason why I say he's a very difficult person to coach is this is all impromptu. He goes outside the pocket. He's got, if he sees there's an opening, he's running. If he doesn't, he's got guys that have stopped, made plays. That touchdown he scored the other night when it was 2020 was a rifle
Yeah.
that he threw, and the coverage was there.
Yeah.
But that was after he was
Oh, yeah.
manipulating around.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyways,
But the thing is that when Tom Brady has his hair on fire in the back in the pocket,
Yeah.
scrambling around, not a good thing for him.
No.
Never has been.
No.
And nothing's ever good come of it.
but
you know.
interestingly enough, now see, and we'll probably talk about this in terms of who you want and not who I'd take Kansas City.
Okay.
I'm sure you probably would go with the Eagles.
I
Now,
am.
Ted Johnson says that the Eagles are probably the better team.
I would agree with Ted on
And
that.
I would say this, I think they're a better team without the best quarterback. Where Kansas City is a good team, maybe not quite as good overall,
but they
with
have-
a better quarterback.
Okay.
And my thing with Super Bowls and hockey and all this is you go with the best of the players. The quarterback is the most important player. If you don't have the best quarterback, you got a tough time winning. If you don't have the best goaltender, you have a tough time winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So, and defense and goaltending win in hockey. It wins in not goaltending obviously, but quarterback and defense wins in football.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, it'll be interesting. I think it could be a good game. It should be a good game, but I'm taking Kansas
Okay,
City.
so Al, since we come to it now, time to put up or shut up. I will put down a Steel and Ride gift card. Okay,
Okay.
I'll wager that Super Bowl straight up bet.
Okay.
No points, nothing. You know, we're not going to do a money line here.
Right.
Like that.
I'll take Kansas City. You take Philadelphia.
All right, no point spread. Just straight up bet.
And,
All right,
if-
okay, we're shaking on it. All right, we're men of honor. You know, we
Yeah, and
honor
if it's
our-
not big enough, they have a nice bakery there. So
Absolutely.
coffee.
But no, and interesting time here too, with the Bruins having come out of their All-Star break, their midseason break.
Well, before we
And-
do that, I
okay.
think what's interesting is I think tomorrow is the 9th, which is the last day of the
NBA trading deadline.
trading deadline.
Yeah, we're
and
gonna get to that,
everybody's
yeah.
everybody's
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at Grant Williams.
Yeah. Who do you bring in?
And that would be interesting to see if they let him go.
Because he's at the end of a contract here.
He's at the end of the contract. I mean, he's probably the 7th player.
Yeah.
You know, if he's not the
But you know
6th.
what? I like him too much to let him go.
Well, you know,
He brings a lot to the
I
table.
think though that if teams are going after him and put the right deal on, he's expendable. He's not expendable for nothing. The Celtics will want something.
So do you bring back who? Do you go out and get Kelly Olynyk?
They're talking about that, but I wasn't an Olynyk fan.
I wasn't either. I don't know that he, can he defend Embiid?
No.
Can he defend those
No,
guys?
no.
Grant Williams will plant his flag in the paint and defend those guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, Grant Williams.
Here's
is
another
like-
guy who did that, Daniel Tice. But, he came here and now he's come and
Yeah,
gone. So
yeah.
I don't know that he'll be here for a third tour. But how about the earth-shattering news? Kyrie Irving to the Mavs.
Yeah,
Al.
well, Kyrie Irving is.
He said that he wasn't going anywhere with the Nets.
He's a storm waiting to happen.
Yeah,
You know, and you never know when it's going to erupt.
right.
He's a volcano.
Correct.
maybe not a storm. He's a
already
volcano. He
erupted in
sits there, and
Cleveland.
all of a
He's-
sudden, Cleveland. He's with the
Yeah.
Nets stuff. I think he signed a 3-year.
You know what though? Here's the thing that
He's a
I
good
think
player, though.
he's a good player, but is he a good teammate?
No, I don't
You
think he
know,
is.
I mean, he doesn't buy into those guys. You know, I mean, look at all the guys that he left behind in Cleveland.
yeah.
The guys he left behind in Boston.
Well, he's a cancer because you see when you see people like him, you know that behind the scenes, what he's doing is he's saying, you know, I got to get out of here. I'm this and that. And you know, somebody makes
He's
me the
looking
right.
at, he's surveying the room.
That's
and
a
going,
cancer
"Can I
to a
win with these
team."
guys?" You know.
You know,
But the thing was that he was lording over the Celtics when at a time when you had a very impressionable Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You know, if he had stuck around with them, he might have impaired their confidence.
It's the only
he
thing-
might have stunted their growth.
it's the only thing that separates the NBA. I hate to say it from the NHL. Is the NBA guys will go like Irving, and
Yeah.
you've seen it a lot. In the NHL, you look at the Bruins, they would be devastated if they let somebody go on this team that brought them to where they are today.
No doubt.
And
I think there's a stronger
the-
brotherhood, a stronger connection.
much stronger in the in hockey. But
Yeah.
here's the problem with something like this: is that you got Sweeney sitting back saying, "Am I going to play for this year, a cup, or do I and mortgage the future, do I go out and get somebody who's going to be an addition to this team, but also allows me to look forward?" They're looking at this kid from Arizona, the left defenseman, Chibram or whatever it's. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's a pretty good player.
Right.
Now he goes into whose spot, which now leads me to believe that Brandon Carlo or Forbert or somebody who's the sixth on the third is expendable.
Well, here's
Or
and
Connor
here,
Clifton or Grzelcyk.
who, if you look at it from a purely statistical production standpoint, right? Who's engaged more in Jim Montgomery's system? It's guys like Grzelcyk. It's guys like Forbert. It's guys like
Brandon
Lindholm,
Carlo has too.
McAvoy. All those guys because they engage in offense. The one guy who doesn't seem to do that as much is Carlo.
No,
and then he had that one goal
Yeah.
right before the playoff. I mean,
But
that
to
was
see,
great
that's-
for his confidence.
But he has been much more offensive with Montgomery than he's ever been. You got to remember,
Right.
the guy was considered an Adam McQuaid type defenseman who's a standback. What aggravates people about Brandon Carlo is he's 6'5" and he's not physical. And if to play in Boston, they like physical players, not fighters, but physical players. And he's not, and he never will be.
Yeah.
But he can.
Guys
He's
will hit,
probably one of the
get on
best
the forecheck.
skaters on
Yeah,
the teams,
absolutely.
and he can skate. And now he's going inside. He's low. I've seen him in the face-off circle down low. He scored the other night from an offensive.
a harsh angle. Yeah.
That's a hot
That's a
offensive
Pasternak angle.
So,
Right there,
anyways,
yeah.
I think the Bees are going to make a move because I think they want to win the Cup this year because
I think so.
you got Bergeron, you got Krejci that are
Well,
question marks. I
would,
think
would,
they're
a,
both
would a
come back.
Bo Horvat done that for them?
Yeah, I would have.
But then what was the price to be paid?
Well, the Bo Horvat, there's a couple of things here. Is the guy under contract for longer? In other words, are you buying a rental?
Yeah.
The Bruins can't afford a rental
Yeah.
because their cap space is only about 3.8 mil. So they got to look for somebody that they could say, okay, this guy's on contract until 2024, 25, something like that. Horvat is a player. He's a player. I mean, he scored last night, incidentally, the first game, big goal for the Islanders. He's going to make the Islanders a tough team. They've won 4 in a row.
I
on top of it.
already thought they were a tough team.
Well, they are, but they needed a kid like Corvette. Was talking to one of the gentlemen here earlier, and he thought that the Bruins would go after Kane or Taves from the Blackhawks, who
Ooh.
both could be, expendable.
But you're not answering your defensive thing with Kane.
Well,
Taves,
yeah,
right?
because what did the Bruins need? Two things. They need another guy on the third line forward, Because, you got Pavel Zacha's playing wing. He can play, he's a center.
Yeah.
So, he might be, if Bergeron leaves, he climbs up the center rankings
Not
on
just
this
Bergeron,
team.
Krejci too.
I don't think Bergeron or Krejci are going to retire. That's my personal opinion.
I hope not.
Now, if they win the Cup, it is possible that they'll retire because you can only win so many times, in
Well,
the
at
Cup.
this point in your career, yeah.
But Bergeron is having as good a season as he's always had, although he hasn't won as many faceoffs percentage-wise as he's done in the past. But that's beside the point. He's still playing very well on a great line with Marchand and him are like this.
Yeah.
I think if the Bruins don't win the Cup, and they're very close like they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago against St. Louis,
Yeah.
they'll both be back.
Do you think at any point during the second half, they're going to have like a stretch of games where they're going to need to call up guys? Will we see like Fabian Lysell?
Oh, sure.
That's going to be exciting.
Well, the two things that this team needs to do is they need to say who at Providence is worthy,
Right.
not possibly, but worthy. Fabian Lysell has proven that he can score now in the AHL.
But Mark McLaughlin is a guy who's, big.
McLaughlin. I mean, I
He's
like
got
the
the
kid,
size.
but he's not a Fabian Lysell could be a 1 or 2 on the lines. I mean, he's
Let's see him.
Pasternak at 18.
I want to see him. Bring him up. Let's put him in there in this.
But they want him to see how he played against AHL players. Don't forget the year before, he was playing against smaller guys. He wasn't as big. He's gained some weight.
Yeah.
He's a Pasternak type guy.
Mm.
He'll go through your legs. He's a very offensive player.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is he good enough to come back? Pasternak's become a better 200-foot player.
Yeah.
Still makes mistakes because he wants to be fancy. He wants to go through guys. He crosses. He does the east to west. He loses. So,
Right.
Pasternak has now that contract is they're claiming
That they're close.
it's imminent.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem: they signed this guy for north of 10.
Someone's got
That
to
cap
go.
space,
Oh.
somebody's going to have to. So then somebody like
So well, that's the thing. Who do you pair off your roster? Because the guys at the bottom end aren't making enough to make that.
Oh, yeah. So what's
You
going to
know.
happen is you could have a couple of things. You could take a guy like DeBrusque, who's had a great run since he said he wanted to be traded, but he could be a guy that,
Trade him.
well, can get you what you want and also get rid of Bucks. Don't forget they signed him for 3 or 4 years.
So what does that do to the room? As you say, guys don't want to see guys leave.
Well,
In that room.
it can hurt the room.
Yeah.
There's no question it can hurt the room.
And that's the thing that Don Sweeney has to weigh and measure, I think, with each move that he ponders, is that how does this affect our room?
But I think
And I think that's a lesson learned when they had that snafu at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but I think what happens with this is all these guys go into business. When you see a guy like Horvath go to the Islanders, he said, I thought I was going to be a Canuck for the rest of my life. He goes to the Islanders. Last night he said he scored a goal. He goes, I was just happy to win for my new teammates.
Yeah.
So, they adjust.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
And as you get older, like when Bergeron leaves, if he leaves, and Krejci leaves, they've had some gaps there that they've got to fill.
Correct.
So if they say, well, DeBrusque goes, DeBrusque won't be as great a player without Bergeron.
He may have to be.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did something that was like, it wouldn't be Marchand, but again, on the second line, you've got Taylor Hall, who I like.
Yeah.
But Taylor Hall went that 15, 16 games without scoring a goal. He's had 2 in the last 2 games, but they were cheap
He
ones.
brings all
He
many
brings
more
it all-
intangibles to
Yeah,
the.
so that's a coach's call, though. That's something that Montgomery would say, you know what? I'll tell you who they like. They like this kid Nosek on the 4th line. I'm not a big Nosek fan, but he plays on the penalty killing. He's better than you think he is. They see that, we don't.
Yeah.
Because we're watching to see how Bergeron and Krejci, Pasternak, we're watching the guys, the big guys.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you don't realize how valuable some of the 4th line guys are. I thought,
I think it was their last game here. That fourth line won the game for this team.
yeah.
You know, it was unbelievable
Well, you got
what they get from those guys.
Again, I was talking to a gentleman here, and he said that Sweeney is the worst draft guy in the world. And I will say this, he balances that off
Yeah.
with trade deadline moves that he made.
Well, yeah.
Hampus Lindholm and Taylor Hall.
Saved his bacon on those ones.
Yeah,
you know.
and then he picks up Pavel Zacha last year. So he knows where the talent is, and he's made those right moves. Well, he hasn't drafted well, except for Fabian Lysell, who,
Right.
let me put it this way. Fabian
Well,
Lysell
is that on
hasn't
him
come
or
up
the
yet.
scouting department?
Well, no, that's him.
Yeah.
That's him.
Okay.
You know, because I think what happens with that is they sit around in a room, the scouts come in and just go,
I vouch for this
I
guy.
think this guy's this, and another guy goes, well, you know, he's not a Bruin, he's a skate, and then he has to make the decision with the coach,
Yeah. Yeah.
with the
well,
coach. You
gotta
know,
do
is
that.
Lysell ready? If he was 22 and a little bigger, he would be playing for the Bruins right now. He
Yeah.
might come up at the end of the year with an injury.
Yeah.
If another injury occurs on the first or second line,
That'd
I
be
mean,
tough.
it could. So,
Well, you're going to have that to deal with pretty soon, but the NBA trading deadline is upon us, and it'll be interesting to see what Brad Stevens does. And I think he's in the same conundrum as Don Sweeney in that, you know, you're looking at a roster right now that's going pretty good.
you know what I noticed?
You've
though,
got some
about
guys at on the bench right now that have produced, but will they be better as starters elsewhere?
the things that I watch that sticks out to me, other than Brown and Tatum, okay? Well, you got guys that make big shots at the right times at Brogdon and White. These guys are good players.
How about Al Horford?
And well, Horford in a different type. Horford is much more a defensive kind of guy. I mean, he can rebound, he can shoot too, three-pointers.
And then the other guy who's coming on is Rob Williams.
Yeah, so you've got all of these things. They have I guess you could say a tapestry of guys.
Right.
You just can't say Brown, Tatum,
No.
because on
I
certain
agree.
nights, so you watch
I
Brogdon's a
agree.
player,
Yes. Derek
and so is
White.
White.
Yes.
And
Peyton
so you say,
Pritchard.
well, Peyton Pritchard should play more.
Yes. I
That's
agree.
my problem with Peyton Pritchard, because when he plays, he
Well,
does
the
very
guy who
well.
takes minutes from him is Brogdon.
I know, but
And then you still have Marcus Smart who's idled right now.
when I look at the scores at the end, I don't just look at see who's got points. I look at how many minutes they
Played. Yeah.
you know, and what contributions other than scoring they make.
Right. Assists, rebounds, steals.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, like Williams, I said last year, the best athlete in the team.
He creates a great presence on the court. I
All
mean,
you have to do is throw it
people-
up there; he's going to get it.
Right. Yeah. And defensively too.
Defensively, if he's around, he's a shot blocker, which you
I
don't
want
see
it,
in
I
the
want
NBA.
I want him on Embiid in that series.
Well, somebody got to be on Embiid.
Well, they're gonna face that right now. You know, they stare that right in the face. But by the time this airs, that game will be over.
So how lucky we are in Boston is that we have the Patriots, which
Yeah.
the Red Sox,
Yeah.
the Bruins,
And the C's.
and the Celtics.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
When you think about that, I mean, you go out Midwest, it's college football
Yeah.
is ruled, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're lucky, Al. I tell you that. I tell you, I'm lucky to have you here by my side every week, and even luckier still to have you join us for another half hour of scintillating sports talk here on Stepping Up to the Plate. All right, everybody. We'll look forward to it next time here on Stepping Up to the Plate. Take care, everyone. All righty.